Hey, this is a bonus call that Jeremy from Nature Remedies and I did after we concluded our 3-part series all on how to biohack your sleep. If you haven't caught up on those, I'm gonna leave the links in the description box. But this video is all about the odds and ends and the stuff we didn't get to chat about during our discussion. We're talking all about sleep tracking devices and what gets tracked during our sleep, what to watch for, and all that kinds of data. And we also get into a little bit of a discussion on the difference between cultures that nap during the day, so biphasic sleepers and monophasic sleepers. So if that is something that's interesting to you, just keep watching. My name is Tanessa Shears. Thank you again for joining me on this chat all about sleep.
Thank you again for joining us with another call on sleep, picking up a whole bunch of odds and ends that we had left over from the previous calls.
Yeah.
How are you doing, by the way? I didn't get a chance to ask you. How's your sleep been doing?
It's been great. I mean, I've been hitting 7.5 hours so consistently. Been lacking a little on the deep sleep because I kind of feel we've been watching Modern Family lately. I don't know if you've ever seen that,
Yeah.
but we're doing just one more episode, just a bit too long into the night. Though even though I have the glasses on, I'm like, oh, that's taking a toll on the deep sleep. That has to go.
Yeah. So what? Your bedtime is like now 10 o'clock and 9 o'clock?
We're usually sleeping by 9:20. But I wake up at 5:30, 5 o'clock with no alarm clock, like fully energized though. It's just the way my brain works.
Look at Jeremy having an IG live at 10:30 at night, right? Huh?
Right? Yeah, no blue light for you.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about some devices. Start with devices, okay? We spoke about tracking your sleep, making sure you hit all the right phases and cycles. What kind of devices are there to actually track sleep? I know we did mention those white noise devices and maybe some humidifiers as well, but those aren't specific devices made for tracking your sleep patterns and data. So what devices are there?
Yeah, and well, like we talked about in weeks before, we don't get a printout from our brain in the morning going, that was a good sleep, you got enough dream sleep, you got enough deep sleep. So it's on us to take that step further. If we're serious about improving our sleep, we need to be able to see what's actually going on. So like you said, the sleep trackers are important. And as the theme that we've been talking about in previous weeks, there's good, better, best in terms of, there's the all-star way to track your sleep, and then there's the less all-star way. So the number one is what sleep researchers would do, and that's called a polysomnography. So that's basically where they hook up. Yeah. So that by far is going to be your most accurate because it's actually measuring brain waves. Now, I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't have access to one of those, and I'm not really interested in going into a sleep lab at this point. So that's going to be your best. It is the gold standard. That's your most accurate. So then
Do people,
what happens?
I have a question?
Yeah.
Do regular people have access to that kind of stuff? I mean, I don't think so. Only in sleep labs, right? Basically?
Yeah, it's more so in Canada where that's like for here example, if you have a sleep disorder or trouble sleeping, they would send you to a sleep lab.
Right.
Honestly, I'm sure there's something that you could buy somewhere on Amazon or something to hook up to your brain. I think there's simpler ways to do it, but that's your best option. So if you're looking at the step down from that, what most of us have access to, that's going to be your wearable sleep trackers. So there are tons of them on the market. And in terms of looking at what works best for you, it's a little bit of a test. So there's a couple different types of the wearables. There is a band that can go around your rib cage, kind of where your heart is here. Now, personally, I wouldn't want to wear one of those to sleep, but those are going to be giving you the most data, right? So there's always that option. I know the brand Polar makes a whole bunch of those.
Yeah, I have one of those.
Yeah,
not for sleep, I have one.
For heart rate monitoring, right? Because it has a lot of data that it can report. So after that, you're looking at your wearables like these. So I mean, I just have a really basic Fitbit, and when I'm talking about basic, I mean, it doesn't do how many stairs I climb during the day. I have it for sleeps and steps, and that's about it. So these are really handy as far as that. I mean, Apple Watches has them, Garmin has them. There's a whole bunch of different brands that do these. And I find that these are usually sufficient, especially, you know, at a beginner level or an intermediate level when you're really just trying to figure out like what's going on with my sleep. There's also some companies that make, you know, rings that you put on to track.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of it is trying, because I found I love this Fitbit, and I have tried some of the really expensive technology, especially the ring. But I found for me that it didn't feel as accurate. So I just ended up sticking with my Fitbit. So it's really about, you know, trial and error. And one of the things I look at is when you're looking at your sleep technology, we know that it's not going to be as accurate as having all the electrodes stuck to your head. So what we do is, right, so when it says you're getting 11% deep sleep, let's just say, what you want to look at is, can I improve that number by 3%? Not, is it 10%, is it 12? Because we have to allow for room for error with these kind of things. But what I look at is, if you can improve your average amount of deep sleep by 1%, 2%, you know it's improved. Whether the number your readout is 10% or 12% or 13%, it's that relative improvement.
Exactly. So you're talking about any improvement is good, regardless of the number that you start out with, as long as you are improving and getting more of it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like you could wear two devices and have them read different things, just because maybe one device is more sensitive to heart rate, one device is more sensitive to dream state. So there is error in that. So I like to look at what is the relative improvement I can make, if that makes sense.
How do these trackers work, by the way? If they aren't connected with electrodes to your brain, based on breathing, based on your heart beat, based on how many times you shift around in the bed at night, your movement, what do they track? How does that work?
Yeah, so some devices do breathing rate. I know that for sure. Some of them have pulse oximeters in them, which means they look at the oxygen content of your blood, but the majority of them are based on heart rate. So your heart rate and your blood pressure, actually, so that's the volume, the pressure of the blood in the arteries, it changes as you sleep. So when you go into deep sleep, for example, your blood pressure drops and your heart rate drops during deep sleep. But when you're in REM sleep, it is very similar to being awake. So what it does is these devices tend or attempt to make an assessment of what stage of sleep you might be in based on the heart rate, the speed of it, and of your blood pressure and stuff like that. So it attempts to make these, and you know, I'm sure there's algorithms and formulas and stuff like that, but, and they also have accelerometers in them too, right? Those are that
when
measure
you move
movement.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, so for example, if I go like this likely just picked up that I did 3 steps, right? So it's measuring when you roll over at night, it's like, okay, she's probably awake if she's rolling over. Because the other really fascinating thing is, this is one of the coolest things I ever learned about sleep. When you're in dream sleep or REM sleep, all of your motor control, that means when your brain is telling your body to move your arm, move your leg, it is completely cut off during dream sleep. And that is to prevent you from acting out your dreams. It's literally a mental straitjacket. It actually blocks off all sensory output. So if you are super still while you're sleeping and no movement, this might pick up and say, oh, she's likely dreaming. There's no movement at all. So it's super
So when we see people moving when they sleep, they aren't dreaming?
No, dreaming, there is literally zero movement. So it's kind of fascinating. While you're dreaming, it's like
animals too, by the way? Animals too?
Sorry?
Animals too?
I haven't read anything on animals, but I would assume mammals maybe. But it's literally your cat.
Yeah, when I see my dog or my cat, you know, like moving around, they aren't dreaming, huh? They're just twitching in sleep. They're not dreaming about hunting down birds or chasing sticks, I guess.
You know what, it'd be interesting to find out, because in some individuals there is a defect with this blocking of motor commands, and that's when you start getting things like sleepwalking, or you know, if someone hauls off and throws an arm out in the middle of the night, it's just there is some kind of error in blocking that signal from moving down the body. But it's really interesting, and like in deep sleep, you're very hard to wake, you lose all muscle tone, so there's nothing there. So it picks up on these things as well as your heart rate and your breathing rate and your blood pressure to try to make an assessment of what stage of sleep you're in.
Yeah, you know what's really scary? Happened to me twice with regards to the shutting off of all your motor functionality.
Yeah,
I had sleep paralysis, and that
heard of
was
that.
really, really, really scary because your body can't move. You're totally
Hmm.
paralyzed, right? But you're awake. You're thinking, and you're awake. You can hear things, and you try so hard to wake up, to move. You say, okay, let me just move my pinky finger. If I can move my pinky finger, I can wake up. And you try to make a noise to tell someone, push me, wake me up, make my body come out of the paralysis. And you can't. You make like very, very small sounds. And it was so, so scary. And it happened to me twice. One time, I don't know how long, but I would say one time for like 2 or 3 minutes, and one time for 5 or 6 minutes. And it was the scariest thing I've ever experienced.
It's literally paralysis during your sleep. I've got a client that experiences that, and it's scary, but that's literally just a misfire in that connection
Yeah,
between brain sending down motor commands to the
yeah,
muscles.
exactly. So scary, so, so scary. The first time I had no idea what it was. Then I read
Yeah.
about it a bit, and I knew the second time. But the first time, I'm like, what's happening to me? What is this? Am I being kidnapped by aliens? Is this? I don't know. I have no idea. It was really, really scary. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
tangent. Sorry.
I'm glad you escaped it.
Okay,
But
so yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say there is one other way that you people try to measure their sleep, and that's with an app on their phone that they put on their bed. And
Mm,
the purpose of that is when they roll over, it picks up sound and movement and tries to fit it into an algorithm to make assessments on where you are in sleep. Personally, I haven't found an app that's accurate enough to rely on. So just putting that out there because that's something that some people do use, is just an app that goes
also,
on the table.
also, an app means to have your phone on, turned on with internet and everything next to you while you're sleeping, which is not necessarily a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's best to have everything powered down so you're not getting woken up by all the notifications
Yeah,
and screen
yeah,
flashing. Yeah, you
yeah,
bet.
yeah. Okay, so when we use these trackers, we said that we're tracking mainly sleep length and how long you're staying in those periods. What else can we learn from the trackers? I mean, our resting heart rate, I guess that's really important to know if we're fit, if we're not fit, if we're in shape, right? BPMs, breaths per minute, also things that you can monitor and give you an idea of how good of shape you're in, right? I mean, what else can we be looking at when we track sleep?
Yeah, and a lot of it too, like we said, depends on the technology. Because I know there are certain things that track a lot more, but like we said, sleep length and then the components of quality, REM sleep and deep sleep, and how much time we're spending in that. There's something called sleep efficiency, which is super interesting. So normally at the end of a sleep cycle, we come to a really light sleep and sometimes wake up. And what we can look at there is, say you have 8 hours in bed, how much of that are you actually spending asleep? So if you're in bed trying to sleep from 10 to 6 and you actually slept from 10 to 6 with no wake up, it's 100% sleep efficiency. Very
Yeah.
unlikely that's happened. Honestly, good ratios to aim for is 85 to 90% of your time spent asleep. And that's where that whole idea of how much time did I spend asleep and what sleep opportunity did I give myself, if that makes sense. So that's what I look at.
Yeah.
There's something called latency, which is really fascinating. So when we go to sleep, we turn our lights out, we go try to go to sleep. There is a gap in the amount of time between when we attempt to go to sleep and when we actually fall asleep. And that is called our sleep latency.
Okay.
Ideally, we want to have between 5 and 15 minutes to fall asleep. If we're taking less than 5 minutes, like if you are actually sleeping by the time your head hits the pillow, you're overtired. If it's taking you longer than 15 minutes, you're overstimulated. So whether we need to pull out blue light or, do a brain dump before bed or find some meditative breathing, some way to calm your brain down. So those are the two components that I like to look at, and that nice little bracket there.
A question with regards to
Yeah,
latency.
yeah,
I know before I go to sleep, usually I will sit. I will lay down in bed and read a book or something. Now
yeah.
I'll read. And also, get drowsy. My eyes are closing. I'll put the book down. I'll roll on my side, and I'm asleep in 10 seconds, pretty much. So is that overtired, or is that part of the whole 15-minute cycle to fall asleep? Where do we
Yeah, so
start
you know what
counting
the
from?
I used to have a device that would measure sleep latency specifically. And I did the same thing. It's when you're reading that same sentence like 9 times and you're just like, give it up. We need to put the book down. So I put the book down, and it always gave me a sleep latency time of between about 5 and 8 minutes, even though I felt the exact same way as you. So I'm wondering almost if that's our brain powering down and slipping into sleep, because there's that transition phase. It's kind of like when you fall asleep on the couch sometimes, you're not really asleep.
Yeah.
So it gave me good scores on that despite reading to sleep. So I'm going to guess that probably works. But
my couch isn't very comfortable to sleep on, so it doesn't happen to me that much. But when I open out the couch and have the nice mattress out, then I can really fall asleep easily. So I want to touch on one more thing really, really quick. I mean, it's a pretty big subject. We spoke about polyphasic and biphasic sleeping. Some people say it's what we're supposed to be doing. Some people say, no, we're monophasic sleepers, sleeping once, sleeping twice, multiple times during 24 hours. Lots of misleading information. I won't say misleading, but lots of different information out there on the internet. What is your view on this? I mean, we're going to go deep into it, but what do you think? Is it just not one solution for everyone, and everyone can, find the right way for them, or do we all have to sleep a certain way?
Yeah, it's interesting. Everything that I've read on the different, and what we mean by polyphasic sleep is having sleep that's not one solid block, but broken up. Monophasic sleep, meaning mono, one, which is what we traditionally know as sleep. From everything that I've seen, it's kind of something that has been a cultural evolution, meaning we used to do polyphasic sleep, and that was more likely if we look back to ancestral times when we needed to be on shifts to watch out for the safety of the tribe. Moving into biphasic sleep, many cultures still observe nap time, siestas in the middle of the day, and then come back to work at night, right? But our modern day, in at least in North America and many parts of the world, observe monophasic sleep. And I think that has a lot to do with our industrial indoor lighting, and I think that also has to do a lot with the invention of electricity and our standardized work days is 9 to 5. It makes it really hard to have a nap. Like, very few of our bosses, if we don't work for ourselves, would permit us going off and having a nap, right?
Yeah. I think it also has to do, although it's not far back in history, but the Industrial Revolution enabled people to work when they should be sleeping, and I'm like, okay, fine. So if I'm supposed to work when I'm sleeping, I'll just sleep all at once, and then I have more time to work. I'd like to think that before the Industrial Revolution, sorry, mosquitoes, people were still monophasic sleepers. I really don't know. I did read something about research they conducted during the Middle Ages. Have you read about this article?
No. What was it? What
during the Middle Ages. Pardon?
What was it? What was the article about? Sorry?
So during the Middle Ages, apparently most people and peasants were either biphasic or polyphasic sleepers. They would wake up with the sun, right, early in the morning, wake up, work in the fields very, very hard, get home, have their siesta, sleep in the afternoon, stay awake, go to sleep when the sun went down, sleep for 3 or 4 hours, and then they would get up in the middle of the night for 1 hour or 2 hours, do stuff they were doing, and then head back to sleep until sunrise. Now, the reason that they say they were getting up in the middle of the night was because they needed to make sure everything was okay and tended to. If it was their flocks of animals, if it was, time to make babies, that kind of stuff. Because there wasn't any light out, right? They couldn't be sure that everything was okay, so they'd have to get up and check to make sure everything was in an orderly manner. So, that's what some historians say. Is it true? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what they based their research on. I couldn't find out exactly if it's based on writing or something else. I don't know. But I think it's a cultural thing at the end of the day, right? Some cultures have siestas. Some cultures sleep straight through.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's probably a cultural thing too, because I know that ideally there is great research to support power naps during the middle of the day. So it really comes down to just, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur or you work for yourself, you can incorporate that in. But for the, majority of people who have an employer, we're kind of bound to our work days and our work schedules and keeping to that monophasic schedule.
Yeah, I know. And briefly, the Uberman sleep cycle, I read about it. It's napping every 3 hours for 20 minutes. Allegedly, you're supposed to hit REM sleep right away and get more rested without having to go through the light sleep phase while you're actually hitting REM. I don't know if it works. I have no idea. I want to try it, but it's just too hard for me. I was never able to get through the first 48 hours of sleep deficit to build up my direct dive into REM sleep when I did close my eyes. What do you think about that?
Well,
Wacky?
I think the thinking behind it, I mean, I don't think I personally do it because I really, value all the components of sleep. However, I think the thinking behind it is when a brain experiences sleep deprivation, it kind of laps up REM sleep first. Like if you were to stay up for 36 hours and not sleep, that whole first night of rest is likely going to be heavy in REM sleep. And then it's nights 2, 3, 4, 5 that's heavy in deep sleep. So the interesting thing that I wonder about that is the assumption is also that we slip right into REM sleep and don't go through deep sleep first. The other really interesting thing that happens during deep sleep is we have these cells in our brain called glial cells, and the brain actually shrinks in deep sleep, allowing spinal fluid to get in all the nooks and crannies and wash out all the metabolites and proteins that build up from, decision making and junk and stuff like that.
Right.
So I'd be curious if that wasn't cleared out, if you'd actually be able to function and perform properly, because if you were only, say, accessing REM sleep, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's been intriguing me for years and years and years, and I just haven't been able to do it. Maybe one day I will, because, there is a benefit if it does work for you. You all of a sudden have 20 hours a day to do whatever you want instead of, 15, 16, or 14 hours most people normally have. So it is a really cool hack. I don't know. If you guys are watching, feel free to look it up. It's a very, very divisive subject online, polyphasic and monophasic. Yeah, I think, sorry, mosquitoes again. I think that's more or less all of the odds and ends we had to wrap up. Is there anything else that you want to touch upon before we call it a night or an afternoon?
I think just because we've been talking about monophasic and biphasic sleep would be a neat thing because we didn't address it, would be just to really briefly chat about naps and what the recommendation is if you're going to follow the monophasic sleep idea of getting 8 hours of sleep. If you're going to nap, ideally, it's recommended to keep it before 3 p.m. and to 20 to 30 minutes or less. And the reason behind this is if we go back, I think it was talk number 2 that we did where we talked about sleep drive and about how those adenosine builds up in those receptors. If you have sleep too late in the day or your nap is too long, it breaks down adenosine from the receptors. We talked about sleep drive, and it actually destroys your sleep drive if you nap too long or too late in the day, so you might have trouble falling asleep at night. So if you're going to have a nap, it's recommended 20 to 30 minutes before 3 p.m.
I've heard of a really cool nap hack, which I actually have tried it sometimes, and it's not bad. So when you do feel that your eyes are closing and you're ready for a nap, what you need to do is have some caffeine or have some coffee, which doesn't affect you right away. Obviously, it takes time for it to get metabolized and enter your bloodstream and affect the brain and your celerity and everything. So you're starting to nod off. You drink some coffee or tea or caffeine or whatever. You enter your nap. You nap for 20 minutes. And then when you wake up, you get double benefits. A, the caffeine, and B, the nap benefit.
I would be curious to see that play out in a research study and actually how that works, because I mean that makes sense as long as the caffeine takes 20 minutes to get to the brain. So we'd have to find that out first.
Well, it has to go through that digestive system and get metabolized, right? It doesn't work right away. There is a bit of an onset time for the caffeine actually has a kind of effect. So I've done it a few times. and I wake up and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here, you know?
Personal anecdote that it worked? That's amazing.
Yeah, it worked. It worked. But you have to have the coffee ready, and you have to know, okay, I'm feeling tired, I'm going to have a nap. You have to set up the circumstances. It's not like, because if you're feeling tired and you want to have a nap, you get up, you go make coffee, you walk around the kitchen. Maybe you're not as tired anymore afterwards, and the momentum for the nap is gone.
Yeah.
So, but for me, it worked, and it was really cool, actually. Yeah.
That's
Nice little hack.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, Tanessa, thank you very much for the calls that we had with you. I learned a lot. I'm sure the guys who are watching now and who watched as well afterwards also learned a lot. For those of you who are tuning in now or who are going to be watching this a bit later on, we have 3 other calls with Tanessa on a whole bunch of subjects regarding sleep, biohacking your sleep, creating your perfect sleep sanctuary, just general sleep tips 101. Check them out. They're awesome. They're on our Instagram IGTV and on hers. So you have 2 spaces to find them. Also, Tanessa uploaded the videos to YouTube, I think, right?
Yep. Yeah,
you can find them on. You can find them on her YouTube channel as well. Any last words, Tanessa?
No, I just hope everyone gets great sleep. It's so good.
Yeah. Me too. I'm ready for mine. It's what time is it now? It's like almost 11 o'clock here at night. Really good time to hit the hay. Thanks a lot. I'm sure we'll be in touch in the future here and there. Have a great afternoon, Tanessa.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks.